Welcome to Our Last Meal, the podcast on grief, loss, and food. I'm your host, Andrew. Every episode, I talk with a guest about grief of someone special, framed around the foods and meals that meant the most to them. This week, I had the chance to speak to host of the Yooman Podcast, Bekah. This was such a intense, I don't know if that's the right word, conversation. I say that because the conversation with Bekah is so easy and so just calm. She has a very calming demeanor, but she shared a lot, and it was a really deep conversation, and I'm just incredibly thankful that she was willing to have it with me. I actually had a chance to be on Bekah's podcast. I'll link to her podcast in the show notes. I'm not sure how well they're going to line up in terms of the release date, but it should be pretty soon. I would just say she's a very kind person. Having the chance to talk with her about her mother-in-law was it was honoring, and I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the episode. I'll jump into that in just a moment. I will say, if you do enjoy this podcast, please take the time to rate and review on whatever service you use. Tell a friend or a family member about it. Share it on social media. Follow it on social media. Any of that. I always say this is a labor of love. I always feel so incredibly awkward doing this promo stuff as part of this, but I want to try to grow this as much as I can. With all that said, out of the way, let's go ahead and throw it over to the conversation with Bekah. Hello and welcome to Our Last Meal. I'm your host, Andrew, and my guest this week is wife, mother, software developer, and host of the Yooman Podcast, Bekah. Bekah, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. I know you just started your own podcast. We were talking about that right before we started recording. Kind of some of the craziness that goes along with that.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things is just meeting other people that do it and finding ways to, I guess network is the right word. Yeah.
It's nice though. I don't, I work from home. I mentioned I'm a software developer. I work from home. So, I feel like I'm kind of isolated a lot, which I enjoy, but it's been really nice though, getting to like reach out and just meet, just different people that I don't normally have the opportunity to do anymore. And so it's like networking, but it's also just been really fun just meeting other people.
I can relate to that because, I'm in the IT side of things too, and it is really nice working from home, just the flexibility and just, it's my space, right? I'm comfortable here, but it is nice to get the human connection and do it. It's one thing to meet people at work who, it's like, oh, did you hear about whatever thing's happening at work? Like that's fine, but I found with this, you get a chance to meet people from other parts of the country, other parts of the world who you would never have met otherwise, and then just jump right into a really deep conversation, which is interesting.
Yeah, I like it. And those are, I don't know, I'm not super great at like the small talk all the time or chit chat, whatever, and so it's nice to just be able to jump into that. And then I was telling someone the other day, it's nice to like jump in, deep conversation, and then I like shut it off and get to go watch TV at home, and I don't have to like keep going. It's not like, it's just a different level of like interaction with people that I'm enjoying. It's not like going out to dinner or staying out for hours. It's just like one quick, nice conversation that I love, and then it's done. And then I go to my bedroom and watch TV. So,
yeah, it is. I haven't thought of it that way, but you're right. I'm good with small talk. I can do chit chat about the weather or sports or whatever, but it is really cool to meet somebody for the first time. Like you've exchanged a few emails, and which is most of the email is just around when are you free?
Yeah,
cool, I'll send you an invite. And then the first time you meet them, within 30 seconds, it's like, okay, let's jump into the most personal things that you can share with another human.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do that for an hour, and then thanks, I appreciate it. So it's odd's not the word. It is just an interesting thing that I don't think I've ever, in the last year that I've been doing this, I haven't like fully stopped to appreciate the insanity of it, I guess.
Yeah. It's a complicated like relationship, because you can't have that level of conversation with someone without feeling some sort of connection that I think lasts longer, obviously, than usual. But it is odd to know, like, we don't have any other ties or anything, so we're going to have this, like, super deep connective, like, discussion, and then, probably not ever, like, bump into each other or anything like that. It's strange. I say it reminds me of the days when I would get on, like, AOL chat rooms and, and talk to these strangers for, like, hours, and that's what it feels like to me, because I loved doing that.
I remember that.
Yeah.
So I remember this back in, you said AOL chat rooms. I know this probably dates us a little bit, but I vividly remember getting AOL for the first time, but like you logging in and just, I'm going to go to a chat room, and then you start talking to a random person. It's just like, where are you from?
Yeah.
Cool. I've never heard of that place. And then in 10 minutes, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that's your life story.
Yeah.
Then just never talk again.
Exactly. I did that a lot. And yeah, it does. That's what it reminds me of quite a bit. So yeah, I don't know, maybe that's where it comes from with all of us in this generation. We're like going back to our AOL days, reaching for that.
Yeah, that might be it. I mean, I guess it's maybe a natural, evolution of that. But I think it also speaks to the fact that humans by nature are social creatures. Even if it's not always fun, I think there's always this idea of, wanting some form of connection or to have a conversation. And I may also be just blowing smoke up my own ass, but it's always fun just getting a chance to talk with people and have a conversation past just like, oh, it's kind of warm today.
Right. Yeah.
So, we took our daughter to soccer yesterday, and it's the soccer parent thing of just kind of sitting there and just hoping that you don't have to make awkward small talk and, looking at people that you don't know if you have anything in common with other than just like, oh, they're playing well, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. There's nothing to say. Good thing the rain held off. I can't say that again. How many times can you say that?
Yeah, or the fun one, I'm sure you've done this, is the birthday parties and
oh my God.
Yeah, having to stand around and you just, I don't know if you do this, but I'll find myself regularly just unfortunately making eye contact with another parent, and then you have to engage.
Yeah.
So it's just an awkward half smile and they wish I had that energy.
Yep, exactly. God, they're gonna sleep good tonight, aren't they? It's classic. I don't know what years are at. Mine, I have two boys who are 9 and 12, and so they're finally old enough to where I can drop them off at parties, and that was like I was just so happy to do that. I'm like, yes, you're done. I can drop you off and be back in a little bit. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are brutal.
So mine, she's still 6, so we're not at a drop off
stage time.
Yet. Yeah.
It's nice. You're almost there.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, and there's nothing against, I've never met a rude parent at any of these, thankfully, but it's,
right. Oh,
I don't know them, so.
Right. I don't think it's rude to say. I don't think anybody enjoys that. I can't imagine. I'm sure there's some that do, maybe, but yeah.
You know what, maybe the next party I go to, I'm just gonna jump right into deep conversation with the first person, lock eyes, and best case scenario, I get an hour of interesting conversation. Worst case scenario, or this might be best case scenario, nobody bothers me for the rest of the time because I'm that weird.
That guy's asking a lot of questions about your last meal with someone you lost. I would not steer away.
What's wrong? Why are you crying? He started talking to me about grief. It was too much.
Yeah, well,
I don't know that I could come up with a better segue than that.
Yeah.
You teed me up perfect.
There you go.
So Bekah, I appreciate you coming on. The topic of the show. I do talk with people about loved ones that they've lost, and who that person was. I want to focus on, let's celebrate who the person was, their relationship, and also talk through the grief process. And we talk about the food aspect of it too, because I think food does play an important part of relationships. So who are we going to talk about today?
Yes, we're going to talk about Mimi. Mimi is my husband's mom. And I'm definitely going to cry through most of it, and it's fine. I love talking about her, but I'm totally going to lose it. I know I am. We lost her in February of 2020. So it was like a month before, America went into lockdown, basically. Yeah. So it's sort of a stacked thing, if you will, for us. But Um, yeah, let's see, so I've known my husband for 18 years. We've been married for 16.
Wow.
We met when I was 18 years old and have been together basically since then. Um, but basically what that means, I met her. He's was always very close to his mom. So I met her very shortly after meeting him. It was pretty, like a month or so, honestly.
Yeah.
And they were very close, and she's very, very sweet lady. So she, just kind of took me in almost immediately and accepted me. And so, I feel like I was very close with her and growing with her for about 18 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, she became definitely like a mom to me. That was what I was calling her at the end, not just a mother-in-law, but a mom.
I think that in-law relationship is. I'm gonna call out the obvious that I think there's been such a joke, I guess in pop culture for the longest time that you don't get along with your in-laws. I hate that because I actually like my in-laws and
Yeah.
my mother. You it's funny you said your mother-in-law, you called her Mimi because that's what my mother-in-law is to my daughter. That's Mimi, and
Nice.
she's a second mother, and I just say all that to say that relationship that you're talking about, that is beautiful because it is. I know not everyone gets that, but to be brought in not just as the spouse of a child, but okay, I'm just taking you on as an additional child is beautiful.
Yeah, I really was. Um, just to kind of jump into the trauma, I've never had a great relationship with my own mother either. And so it was like just extra special to have someone who, like, through those 18 years of knowing her, she really showed me like what a mom could be, what a parent sort of relationship could look like, and what it should look like. When I met my husband, I really wasn't planning on having kids ever. I didn't want them because I had a really bad example of
Yeah.
parents. And after knowing her for quite a while, we got married and we were together for like 4 years. And after knowing her for that long, was what made me kind of change my mind and realize that there was, a different way of doing things. And my husband had an example of it, and I was now seeing an example. So yeah, she was really someone who changed my mind about that and kind of helped me know how to navigate that as well.
Let me ask you how it sounds like you were very close with her. Was this something you had a chance to talk with her about, or was this kind of an unspoken? Because I think sometimes we don't say these things out loud, but it's obvious. It's like you were influential on me, whether it's out there or not.
Yeah, I think it was because, during the time of knowing her, I had a lot of just sort of issues and like dramatics with my family. And so I would talk with her a lot about it, and she knew what was going on. And, she would talk to me about, she wasn't super like emotional. I mean, she was nurturing and loving, but she didn't express emotions with like verbally often.
Yeah.
But she would kind of say like, I don't know how anyone could do this to you, and I'm sorry. Or just say like, you have me at least. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So it was definitely a little more spoken, but I think a lot of it was she was just there, and just with her actions and how she welcomed me so quickly. She was really into Christmas, and so like the first Christmas that I was there, she had my gifts ready to go and everything. Made me a stocking. I mean, we were just dating, and she had me a stocking on the fireplace. Just like her actions, she just kind of welcomed me right away.
It's interesting you say that because I mean, you maybe heard this before, something to this effect. But I mean, love is a verb, right? Mm-hmm. Love is it's not just a thing that you say. It's not a noun. It is an action. And it sounds like she gave you the words, but it sounds like she also more importantly gave you the action of showing you that you are loved, you are cared for, you are a part of the family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she really did. We ended up living with them for a couple years actually at one point, and that was really the same thing. I mean, it was just no question. She just kind of welcomed us in and just treated me like a daughter, and my, kids, like she was basically a second mom to them as well when we lived there. And yeah, just the actions. She was definitely was showing, very, very showing person in that way.
That's beautiful. And it's one of those things. I think there are times that we meet people in our lives that we need to meet at a certain time. And it's without assuming too much, it sounds like that she provided you something like that.
Yeah, she definitely did. I don't know. I don't know what would have happened if, I mean, like I said, she changed my mind on wanting a family and being able to be a family. And I know that I've learned a lot from her in, how to raise kids, down to sort of the more tangible details, like how to plan meals. Like she taught me what I know about how to like buy groceries, from things that are on sale, and how to like make meals, like, I mean, down to that kind of stuff that I feel like I still do. So, I mean, yeah.
Hey, that might seem like a small thing, but, as somebody, it's Sunday night as we record this, so I know you're probably feeling the same thing. It's like, okay, I've got to plan out for the week. Okay, what are the meals? What are the lunches? What is all that stuff? What snacks do we have? It's a huge task.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I didn't, again, my mom was not a very, like, just nurturing person, I guess, so she didn't really know how to do any of that stuff, so I didn't really learn. And then, but Mimi was just really good at that. She would always, somehow she just kind of knew, like, how to look at what was in the pantry and then make something that was awesome. And I never knew how she did it. And then when we lived with her, got to like kind of see her, and because we were eating dinner together every night, and just kind of getting to learn that was, I still do the stuff that she taught me how to do.
I've noticed that there are certain people we meet in life who, and it feels like it's with food especially. I found food is where this especially happens. If somebody who's a great cook, or who knows how to nurture and provide like that, if you ask them how they do it or how to do it, you can never get a straight answer.
Yeah.
I've had people on the podcast that talk about, a recipe that, a grandmother tried to share with them. I had this with my grandmother too, of, well, you just mix this and some of this until it's ready, and then it's done.
Yeah, yeah.
They can't give you measurements or tell you how to, the steps to take to follow something. They just do it. Is that how she cooked? Is that what it was like for her? Yeah,
I mean, that was a hard thing that was, when she passed, because it was very sudden. And so we didn't really, that was something I'll talk about. I wasn't going to get a chance to like ask her really to write anything down or to capture them, because everything she made, there was not a recipe. Like there was no written things, and I've heard like on some other episodes, whatever, you've had people like, oh yeah, I got this cookbook from, my grandmother. I'm like, we don't have that at all, because nothing was a recipe. She just added things until it felt right. And, if you got to watch her do it, or she helped you make it one time, then you kind of knew. But everything was just like going by what felt right, Well,
that might be the magic in cooking like her, though. Instead of following a recipe to a T, maybe it is cooking with the feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel like that's something that I've been able to learn and to do better on. That's something I've kind of perfected, I think, at least in my, maybe not like big meals, but in like the everyday meals. That's kind of what I do, is just kind of throw things together. I'm like, I don't know, I guess it kind of needs some more butter or more salt, because it always needs more butter or salt,
Nothing is made worse by more butter or salt.
No, never.
Were there any foods that you felt like, I know you said that a lot of it was cooking with feeling, but were there any foods that she specifically did that just felt like her signature dish?
Yeah, I was trying to think of the ones, and it was just like this huge list, and I was asking some other family members, and they all had just like so many things. But one was the mashed potatoes. It sounds simple, but she was the one who made them for every like holiday, for any event. It was always like, all right, well, she's obviously making mashed potatoes, because there was just a way that she made them where they had like a little bit of some chunks. It was so much butter, so much salt, But like, so the rule was like, don't look when she's putting in the butter because you don't want to know. It's worth it. They're good. You don't want to see how much is in it because it was a lot, but they were good.
So, did you ever get a chance to like watch her make them or help her make them?
Yeah, I mean, we saw, I think, I can't pull them off. My husband has now been the one who actually makes them because he would pay attention when she'd make them. So he's actually the one who started making them now for the events, and it's kind of the same thing. He just keeps adding in butter and salt until they kind of taste right. So yeah, that's his.
Is there like a sense of acknowledgement from the family that, hey, this is kind of I guess what I'm asking is, do you think about her whenever you're making them, having them, or making sure that they're there?
Yeah, definitely. It's very much like, would Mimi approve of these? Would she say to add more salt? Like whatever. And then when we're eating them, it's like, oh yeah, she would like these. This is good. Yeah, I mean, it's that. And then it's every time, I mean, there's so much that she used to make, but anytime we are wanting something, whatever, that there's so many meals, there's like, that we talk about her. So there's like chicken and dumplings was another one that she would make. Oh, yeah. I can't quite pull that one off. I've tried. It's not quite the same. There was SOS. I don't know if you know what SOS is.
So I know what it is. I don't know what your opinion on profanity is. I am okay with it.
I'm fine with it. Okay.
Well, okay, by all means, please explain.
There you go. So one of her famous ones is shit on a shingle, and you just get a piece of toast, and then you cook some ground beef, and then you make white gravy in it, and you put it on the toast. And that was her like super easy like weeknight meal always with green beans. So you can't eat SOS with anything else but green beans. I've made that, I think, or my husband's made it once. We have certain ones that I just can't pull off, I guess, because he watched her cook some of those a little more. So I can't pull off like white gravy because I wasn't raised in the South and he was, so I can't quite do it. So yeah, if it's anything like that, he does that one.
Yeah, so I'm from, because you're in Texas, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I'm in North Carolina, so yeah, SOS, chicken and dumplings. I grew up on both of those. The chicken and dumplings more so. The SOS, that was only whenever my dad had a craving for it, and it would only be instead of ground beef, it would always be the dried chip beef.
Oh, okay.
So it's still good, just different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the chicken and dumplings, my mom to this day, that is, when I think about my childhood and her signature dish, like that's it to me, is the chicken and dumplings, because that is a bowl of comfort.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's it's because like the full on, just like a whole chicken. So like like everything you can possibly pull off of it. And then, which I always get a little grossed out by, so I'm not very good at making that. Because I like just like nice white chicken breast and that's it. I don't like all the, but she would just like pull everything off. And then I never can get the dumplings quite right either because she would obviously just make them from scratch. And I'm just not quite good at that.
She made homemade dumplings?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was just like somehow she just whipped up like whatever she did and then cut them up and threw them in there. And I don't know. I didn't get to see that one, so I can't do that one.
I really do feel like there's a certain magic to some people cooking that you just cannot recreate. You can try, you never quite get there though, and it's hard and it is kind of frustrating. But there is something I think in the act of trying to make it, because when you're making these dishes, the SOS, the chicken and dumplings, the mashed potatoes, I don't want to assume, but I want to ask, are you thinking of her? Is it is it done as an act of remembrance?
Yeah. I mean, we have, the other day I was asking my kids for like suggestions or requests for dinner. And my 12-year-old was like, hey, can you get, Mimi always used to make macaroni and cheese and hot dogs. That was what she always made for me when I spent the night. Every time. So I was like, all right, yeah, I'll try that one out. And then like, as I was making it, they were like, all right, don't screw this up. You have to do it right. So I had to I was like, all right. So when I was asking my husband, I was like, does she boil the hot dogs? He's like, no, she would always cook them in a skillet. I was like, all right, I gotta do that right. And then it's like, always like, so how long, like how mushy were the noodles? Like what are we doing here? And so the whole time I'm like asking him and the kids, like, how did she make these? And like, you have to make the macaroni and cheese, then cut them up, and she always had a ton of pepper. So you always add pepper to the macaroni and cheese. And so like I was giving it to them. They were like, yeah, this is pretty good. It's not quite doesn't taste quite like what she did, but it was okay. I was like, all right, well, they were like, you burn the hot dogs. Maybe you would never burn the hot dogs. I was like, yeah, I know, I'm trying here. So yeah, it's like a constant, I mean, almost every time we're making anything that she might have made, we're talking about her, we're comparing, we're like, it's not quite as good, but it's close. So yeah, I mean, it's always there. It's always in the back of our mind. As well as just talking about it openly, like how would she have done this differently, and just a way of like remembering her and remembering our time with her.
I love that. I love that it was a family affair to, because you think macaroni and cheese with hot dogs in it. I think that is a very. Whenever again, comfort food is something that just feels good, and as you were describing that was really making me hungry. I would actually love a big bowl of that right now. I think you had me sold finally whenever you said a bunch of pepper in there, because I love pepper. But the fact that even something fairly simple, right? It was still a family affair to get it just right.
Mm-hmm.
And for you all to get to talk about her while you were doing it.
Yeah. We have, every year in her birthday, we started, we have what's called Mimi Day, and we just do all the things that she loved. So we have coffee, because she drank coffee so much. We listen to Michael Bolton, because that was her favorite artist. We go to the Dollar Tree, because she would always take the kids to the Dollar Tree when they spent the night at her house and let them spend like $10. And then we just pick one of her meals, depending on what it was, and she always made, she was really good at cakes. Like, she loved to make all kinds of cakes. So she liked bun cakes. So you'd make like a chocolate bun cake, and she was always trying out like different little frostings that she wanted to make. They weren't super fancy, but they were, I don't know, she'd be like, oh, I just experimented by like melting peanut butter or something. And so we'd always just try and do that. I don't know. Yeah, we all four of us were always talking about her. I mean, at least once a day, probably still.
Yeah. What I know you said that it was kind of unexpected, her passing. What was that grieving process like as a family?
Well, so she actually was back in 2017. She was actually suddenly as well, but she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. But she did go through chemo, and that of course was really hard. The kids were a little younger, but of course having to go through that and explain that and watch her go through it was hard. But she had, by the end of 2019, she was doing pretty good. Like she had finished chemo, and I don't remember the words for it, but kind of some sort of marker count was kind of normalizing. Not that, I mean, it was still stage 4, but she was doing okay.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, in February of 2020, she had like coronary artery disease, and she just had a heart attack. It was very sudden. We were supposed to go to her house on Sunday. She was going to make us a meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and she went unconscious on like Saturday. Was gone by Sunday. So it was just felt like out of nowhere, because I felt like we had like processed the cancer, and we're like, all right, we have some more time or whatever, and then that.
It was feeling like you'd gotten through. You felt like it's feeling like, okay, we've gotten through the worst part of it, and
yeah. And then of course, I mean, a month after that, we had to, go into lockdown. And I don't know, that was like a blessing and a curse in a weird way. Obviously, COVID was not good, but at the same time, we got to like hunker down for that first year, just the 4 of us. And I think in a way, I don't know, it just helped us like isolate ourselves. We didn't have to go back out in the world after losing her and pretend like everything was fine. We didn't have to go into, I mean, we did for like a month, but it was like, no one remembers. I don't remember that first month.
Yeah.
But we didn't have to like just go on with everything. We got to skip like the first, right? Like there was no first Christmas really without her because we couldn't see everyone, and we just used that excuse and we were staying home. So I don't know, we just kind of processed it in like a little bubble, and I think it was kind of good, and then it also kind of kept us like from really processing a lot. So I don't know, it was a weird experience, but we like cooked a lot. We cooked all of our favorite foods a lot. My older son started like baking during lockdown, and
Really?
he would like bake these cakes, and he'd be like, "What do you think? Is this like Mimi level cake?" And we're like, "Oh yeah, definitely." She would be so proud, and he got really good at baking like cookies, and he'd ask if she would like them. We're like, "Yeah, definitely. You like have the gene. She passed it on to you," and he's really proud of that.
That's bringing a tear to my eye because, I mean, grandparents are special, right?
Yeah.
And I think too is for a child that young to lose the one and then try to. God, yeah, that really got me. I'm sorry.
Sorry, no.
No, that's
No, because they did,
that's
we,
beautiful.
like as I mentioned, we lived with them, and it was, he was like 2. It was like from when he was like 2 to 4, and that's when my youngest was born. So, she was like their second mother. I mean, she would watch them almost every weekend. If we had to go out and do some things, she was just like, of course, she was there.
Yeah.
And they had that comfort level of, I mean, it didn't feel like a stranger or anything. She just was there for them, and she had that with all her grandkids as well. I mean, all of her grandkids thought of her like that, and that was just who she was. I mean, she was just that open person that anyone would just kind of fall for like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was when we were at the hospital and it happened and we all had to go pick up our kids. There was that level of like grieving when we were there, like the kids were there.
Yeah.
And then when we were getting ready to go, and we're all just looking at each other like, oh shit, now we all have to all go tell our kids. And that was, I don't know, that was probably the worst part of it, even more so than like actually processing it ourselves.
Was that their
Just
first
having to go
experience?
tell them. I mean, they had lost maybe like a great grandparent, I think, or no, but it was the first real one.
Yeah, I've talked about my grandfather passing. That was the kind of the catalyst for this show. When he did pass, about a month before his passing, we got a phone call that we thought that, we think he's on his deathbed. We think today's the day. And it was right at the beginning of COVID. And so I'm home with my daughter and distraught, trying to explain to her. And she would have been maybe 4 at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy explaining that to a child, especially when you're trying to grieve and also translate it for them, I guess. And that's one of the things about being a parent that nobody really warned me that you have to do a lot of translation. You know, you have to translate the concept of what the future is. You have to translate what the concept of the present is, of the past. Anything that you can think of that we take for granted, just understanding, you have to explain that to them.
Yeah.
But then something like monumental, like, okay, like death, and then, what that means, and then trying to, explain how to process that while you're trying to do it yourself is insanely difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard because can I get into like religion and stuff? I don't want to get anything too crazy.
No, no, that's fine. And I'll keep this into whenever I edit. As far as the show goes, I when it comes to religion, when it comes to belief, if it helps in any way, then I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think there's any really right or wrong way to grieve. I think there are ways that are healthier than others, but sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so it's hard because, we both of us were raised, and his family was raised very Christian, and so. But the thing is, right around the time when this was happening, he and I were already starting to sort of have our own like questions or doubts or things like that. And so from his side of the family, it was a lot of like telling the grandkids stuff. It's like, all right, well, she's in heaven and she's fine. And, it was what the plan is. It's what God wanted. And, on our end, we're sitting here like in COVID doing this grieving process. And we're like, I don't know what to tell you, to be honest. I mean, I do believe, that I can feel her still. And I know that her spirit was strong enough, but I don't know what to tell you. And in a way, I wish that we weren't going through that, because it would have been a lot easier to just say like, yes, I know what's happening. Here's where she is. I know we're going to see her again. And when you're going through that other process, not on top of losing her, it's like, I don't even know what's going to happen. I don't even have that thing. And so, I'm not saying we put that on our kids necessarily. We're not like trying to get them to wrestle with like the depths of what happens.
Yeah.
But we also were like, I mean, yeah, I think she is in a really good place. I think she's okay now. But, I also can't pass on that certainty because I don't have that. So, I mean, all that to say, like, our just main focus was on just remembering, what she did give when she was here. And that was really the only thing we felt like we could do and still do, is just focus on her spirit that we still have in all these little, things. But, yeah, I don't know. That was just kind of an additional layer, I guess.
No, I get that, because I am not religious. I sometimes wish that I was. I grew up with it. I've got family that maybe listens to this podcast and who may either be shocked or like, I kind of figured, or may judge me, may not judge me. I don't know. It is what it is. But for me personally, I do wish, but it was a long time ago I started to question things, and things like this, losing people, just it brings it all back to the surface, and it makes me want to believe it for no other reason than just that feeling of I want to see them again, and
right.
I would be desperate to do so. I also don't want to feel like I'm lying to myself, and I won't judge somebody who finds comfort in religion, because one, I don't know. I don't,
right.
Anybody who's too, I don't trust anyone who's too certain about anything.
Right, exactly.
There's too much gray area in the world. I'm a big believer that the world is, nothing is too black and white. There's some things that are black and white, but it's a lot of gray area. But anyone with that level of certainty that 100% there is something out there, 100% there isn't, I have to side eye you. But I wish there was.
Exactly.
And that concept that you're talking about how do you share that with your kids, because I don't want to give them an existential crisis that early.
Right.
It's a little. Right. It's a little. We can advance to the existential stuff later.
Let's start. There's time. There's time for that.
Yeah, you got plenty of time to lay in bed at night questioning what's next. But
yeah.
No, it's one of those things. It's I think everybody has to find that thing, and it's what I was saying, that I think there's no right or wrong way necessarily. There are certainly healthier ways. There's certainly turning to, I'm going to just drink myself silly. Probably not the healthiest way to do it.
We did do that. I'm not going to lie. That was another coping mechanism, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and you probably know too, probably not the healthiest, but also I can't say it's wrong, because
right.
When you go through something like that, it is so difficult to say, okay, because it's almost like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Something's got to stick to make me feel better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, I know when my grandmother passed last year, I remember it was a couple of days after she passed, I was rushing, just I need to get a suit. I've got to wear a suit to her funeral because I'm going to be a pallbearer.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't have cared less. I know she couldn't have cared less. She would have been so mad that we were even having a funeral, making a fuss over her. Because she was just such a... If you were, she was the opposite of the center of attention. She she was that person. She just wanted to make sure everyone else was okay, and she would have been so mad, you know, with people making a fuss over her. But in my mind, I'm like, I have got to go spend $200 right now on a cheap suit because that's the fastest one I can get, because I've got to look nice for my grandmother. Again, not the smartest probably, but in the moment, you don't know. You're just trying to get through it day by day.
I mean, there's not like a manual. No one tells you what you're supposed to do with when these things happen. You're like, I don't know. I guess should I just do the things that you're supposed to do? And yeah, I mean, I know what you mean with the suit thing. With her funerals, like, you know, the flowers they were sending us. She didn't like flowers, and she never would have wanted. You know, we joked about that. We're like, she would never have wanted to be up there with people, like, not to get too graphic, we were like, you have to have a closed casket, because she would just hate it if people were like looking at her. She did not want, and we were laughing, you know, because that's what you have to do, but we're like, she would have hated that. You can't say put all these flowers and talk about how sweet she was. I mean, yeah, she was sweet, but she would have been just embarrassed out of her mind.
Yeah. My grandmother was the same. She there was an open casket for the immediate family for visitation. I didn't go because I didn't want that to be my last memory.
Yeah.
And again, this is there's no fault, I think, on either side of it. It's to the individual. It's because all of the funeral rites they're for the living, you know. Mm-hmm. I do firmly believe that it's for the living. It's to help us process, you know. But I put a lot of weight on trying to be respectful of the person, which again is why I was scrambling the day before a funeral to find a suit. But she, for the service, she wanted a closed casket because, you know, she didn't want the attention. And yeah, it's like you said, you have to, I think finding humor and finding moments to laugh through the entire thing is important, because you there's no time you need more levity than that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I was gonna say one more thing. You know, you mentioned your son learning to bake, and I did tear up a little bit whenever you were telling me about that, because I think it's so sweet that he wanted that connection to her. But I think what really stood out to me about that is that, you know, she made such an impact on him, and even he's still young. It sounds like, you know, that impact he's gonna carry that forever, and you never know what that's gonna do for him. That love of baking now might turn into so many things. It might be that's his calling in life. It might just be the thing that he does for his friends and family. But he gets to carry that act of love from her for the rest of his life, and that is so beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, and we make sure that is what I love, because, you know, he likes to bake, like for fun, you know, and he likes to eat it, of course, but I think that, I mean, every time he does something, it's always like, well, would Mimi have liked this, or is this as good as Mimi's? And I think that's the way that he kind of keeps her memory going, is by doing that, because he's never made something and didn't ask that question, or it's never been like unrelated to it, so it's always related to that. And he didn't do it before, so I know it's from that. So yeah, it's really special, and I'm happy.
Yeah, I think there's comfort knowing that we have the impact as humans, I guess, to make an impact on other people and carry on in some way. Whether it's through, hey, these mashed potatoes, they're they need a few more lumps, or like, hey, the macaroni and cheese was good, just a little more pepper next time, or like, hey, this cake is really good. It's so cool to me that we can have that kind of impact. And I don't have a point to that. I just think it's really a really cool thing.
And she didn't, you know, she wasn't like a serious baker or anything like that. And so it wasn't that she was out there like even teaching him necessarily. You know, she would make these, and if they were spending the night, they'd make a cake together, and it was just like a box cake, and, you know, he would pour in the water, and that was about it. Like, it wasn't crazy. You know, she's not out there teaching him all this stuff, but it was obviously just the act of them doing that stuff together. Nothing fancy, just, like I said, box cake mix, whatever.
Yeah.
Just that stuff has made him want to do that, and learns how to do it. And yeah, I mean, it's obviously a huge impact and with not much effort at all.
That's awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to tell me about her?
Yeah, my husband actually brought this one up, and he said I should make sure. So I was trying the other day to make this like pasta salad that she would make. And I haven't made it, I don't think ever, because I couldn't handle it, because it was one that she would always make, like for us in particular, and I just couldn't, I just couldn't bring myself to try.
I understand.
But it's been 3 years, so I was going to try. So we were walking around the store, getting the stuff for it. And he realized that when she would put stuff into food, sometimes she would change things up, or like say like, oh yeah, this is usually made with this, but I make it with this. And I realized she did that because it was stuff that she liked. And it was like this sneaky little way. And she would create these versions of things that she only liked and she didn't care. But she would pass it off as like, oh, this is Mimi's version. And then everyone started making it that way, right? And it was just because she didn't like it. And it was such a subtle little, like, power move, you know? So, like, with this pasta salad, like, she would, what was it that, she would put chopped up dill pickles as opposed to, like, relish, because she did not like relish.
Yeah.
And she would only use, like, Miracle Whip instead of mayo, because she hated mayo. And it was very specific. And now that's how you have to make it. And it was just like, just a little thing that she'd be like, I don't like that, so I don't use it. I don't know. It's just one of those little things, because it was like she was thoughtful, but she also just did those things.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I have a lot of respect for that, because honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, she's making it for other people, yeah, but like she wants to eat some too. I mean,
Yeah,
it's got to be
exactly.
something she likes. And the spin of, well, this is just my version.
Yeah.
You know, the subtext is, this is what I like.
Exactly.
It's
And then
actually
as it's
brilliant.
carried on and people are making it, it's like, it's like, you're like, oh, it's Mimi's version, it's special. But it's just like, she just didn't like that. Yeah, just a special little, that was just one of those, like I said, she was so sweet and so caring and so nurturing, but at the same time, you know, she would do those little things. And I think it was just like this little edge to her that I think, just made it special. So
Yeah. I know you mentioned that, cooking for others, it was kind of a love language for her. And it sounds like she left a big impact through that.
yeah, she would make a cake for everyone's birthday, and she always remembered like one particular, everyone had like a cake that she would make. So, and she had she had 3 kids of her own, and we all got married and had kids. And so every single person got their own special cake that she would make on their birthday. And so mine was pineapple upside down cake. She, I think, just made it randomly back when my husband and I were dating. And I remember thinking it was amazing and I loved it. And then, she made it for my first birthday. And then I had it every birthday for like 16 years or something. And then that was my first birthday after she passed. My husband made it for me. And I couldn't eat it. I was like, I can't do it. So I actually haven't had it since, because
It's too much.
I can't even eat that. I love that cake, and I just can't even eat it, because I don't know, I want to throw up. That was like the one, there's some things, that you're like, yeah, chicken dumplings, I want to eat it. It reminds me of her. And then that one just, I don't know. I can't eat that anymore. Yeah, it's just too much.
Yeah. And again, I go back to, there's no right or wrong, right? It's, there's no right or wrong, and I don't think you should, not that you do, I don't think you should feel bad about that. I don't think you should question yourself on that. I think that's one of those, you have to listen to yourself sometimes. And if what yourself is telling you is that, hey, this is too much for us, that's fine.
Yeah.
When you're ready, if you're ready, you'll know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, again, the things that we can do, we do. And then, yeah, it's a weird feeling though, because I remember he made it, and I was thinking like, yay, this is it. And I was excited. And then I started trying to eat it. I was like, nope, can't do it. It's not right. She didn't make it. I can't eat it. So even if it tasted great. I'm not saying he didn't. He did a great job.
Not a knock on the cake.
It was good. Yeah. Yeah. It's weird how they're so tied together, that her brains make that such a strong connection that I just can't even.
See, but that's why I wanted to do this show, was that, I feel like we connect so much between people and food that we share with them or that they provide, because, food is one of the lowest common denominators. Everybody's got to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I feel like it's easy to make a connection to somebody through food. We talked about the idea of just sitting down with a stranger over the internet to jump in a deep conversation. I feel like you could go into a diner just about anywhere, sit down with somebody, have a slice of pie, and just talk. And and then boom, you've got a core memory. It's breaking bread with people is important.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I really like. I know this one is in particular because she was such a cook and it was such a strong thing. But even outside of that, you don't think about how often you relate that, but I've been listening to your episodes and I'm like, it's a very common factor. And I knew that I thought about it a lot, but I didn't even realize how much it was just sort of an obvious thing, or not obvious, but how common it was, I guess.
Yeah. We don't talk about grief as a society.
Right.
We you got ahead of me earlier because I was going to ask what it was like going through that grieving process at the beginning of COVID, but you spoke to it, and I'm glad you did, because I think COVID was it sucked. Obviously, it was horrible because we lost so many people, but I think everybody too, that being confined to your house, I guess, for all that time. It was very much there was a lot of processing done, I think. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like there was good and bad to the grieving process for you because of that. And I don't know, I hope you're all in a better place now, and I hope that continues to grow and get better. It sounds like you're all doing a good job of keeping her memory alive.
Yeah, we definitely are. It was, like I mentioned, it was a lot. We were home. We did a lot of eating and drinking, and that was what we did. We just ate and drank and talked about her and about everything else. Again, I don't know for sure if we did it the best way. It was very isolating, so that we had to do all those first things later. But I don't know. It was just different. It was a different experience, and I kind of appreciate it in a way, because like I said, we were protected and we were in a bubble from anything else. But yeah, we're doing really good. We're just working on, the family's kind of getting into a new kind of rhythm. It was obviously really rocky. She was kind of the core. She kind of held everyone together. So I felt like immediately after, people sort of floated off, but we've sort of recombined, and we've had some really good meals together. We've had meals where people will bring things that maybe she used to make, and we talk about it and we compare it. Or her husband actually was, again, she cooked all the time, but Papa has started cooking a lot, and we've all been really proud of him. And he put together a fish fry, and he made everything, and we were so proud of him for doing that. And we've had some good times where we realized we all like together and we're laughing and over food. And, it's different, obviously, but it was actually a really good time. And it's nice to start hitting those. They've been recent, it's taken some time, but it's really nice to have those moments where you leave and you're like, that was actually really fun. It wasn't just sad, it was fun, you know.
Life, I think, is very much like a roller coaster with the ups and the downs. So when you've been really down, that come up process is really nice. And
yeah,
I think taking the time to stop and appreciate it is really important. Yeah. I had a guest on a while back who is the curator of the Kurt Vonnegut Museum, and I am a big fan of Vonnegut's work. And there was a quote attributed to him: the stopping to just say, if this isn't nice, I don't know what is. I firmly believe in living life by that, and I think it's an important thing to do.
Yeah, that's perfectly said.
Bekah, I appreciate you so much coming on. Before we wrap up, I do have one question for you. If you had a chance to sit down and have one more meal with her, any food you wanted, any situation you wanted, what would it be?
Oh. So I mentioned that we were supposed to go see her on the Sunday that she passed. Yeah. And it would be, she was supposed to make us meatloaf and mashed potatoes. And I just really liked the way she made those. And I just wish that, yeah, it would be that one. I wish that we had gotten that last meal together. Because we didn't know, I don't remember what our last meal was. So we obviously didn't know it was going to happen. So I'd pick that one, just to kind of wrap it up.
Yeah. I understand that. I appreciate you sharing so much with me and with the, with the audience and just sharing your story, because it's clear that she made a huge impact on everyone in her life, and it's nice to know that she's living on through all of you.
Yeah, she definitely is. She's still around in some way. I can feel it.
Yeah. There's solace in that, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Before we wrap up, though, I do want to make sure I give time for you to talk about, what you're working on. I mentioned at the beginning you have a new podcast, but I want to open up to you. Anything you want to talk about or promote that is important to you?
Yeah. So I started doing the Yooman Podcast. It's Yooman, just a funny play on human. It's just a way for me to talk to people. I find that people just have these sort of interesting stories, and maybe you would never expect them to, and I like being able to pull that out, and I like being able to listen. So that's just kind of the goal, is to meet these people and to find what their sort of thing is, their perspective on the world, and share it. I will also share, just since it's somewhat related, my husband has a recording studio, and it's called 6157 Sound. That's actually her birthday. It is June 1st, 57. So he does music in her honor. She was really into music and kind of inspired him as well. So those are kind of linked, and he's a co-host occasionally of the podcast as well.
That's awesome. I'm going to make sure I promote or a link out to your podcast, to his studio as well, in the show notes.
Thanks.
I know, so we're recording this early May. I don't know when this will come out. I have listened to the first 2 episodes that have come out, and I really like them. I love I'm a big fan of just conversation storytelling. That's a big part of why I do this kind of podcast. Yeah. And I think you're off to a great start, and I think you've done a great job of just having conversations with people, with interesting conversations. And to that point you made, just finding out people's story. Everyone has one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Well, Bekah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you again to Bekah for joining me today and talking with me about her mother-in-law. She sounds like an amazing, kind woman, and I was just honored to get to hear about her. You can learn more about her and her podcast by going to your podcast provider or social media and searching the Yooman, Yooman podcast. As always, I will link to that in the show notes. Highly encourage you to just go check it out. If you enjoy conversations with people, if you enjoy this podcast, you will love that podcast. I think it's delightful. I'm a big fan of it, and I just encourage you to go check it out. You can also subscribe to Our Last Meal wherever you're listening, so please take the time to do that. Please take the time to rate and review and try to help other people find this podcast. If you know someone grieving and you think that maybe this could be helpful, please share it with them. If it's something that they don't feel is right for them right now, that's fine too. Please at least take the opportunity to just talk to them. I think grief is really something that it doesn't spread by talking about it to other people, but it does help in some way, if that makes sense. So if you know somebody grieving, if you are somebody grieving, please talk. I think that helps more than we know. You can find more about this podcast on any of the social media, Our Last Meal Pod. You can go to ourlastmeal.com. If you're interested in being on the show, you can send me direct messages on any of the social media platforms, or just send something to me, ourlastmealpod@gmail.com. I would be happy to talk with you. I'd be honored to talk to you. So please do that. I guess the last thing I'd say is just until next time, please take care of yourselves and go share a meal with someone you love.